Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
I'm your co-host, David.
Today, actually, you're the host. I always forget to say that.
Oh, yeah. Are you ranking this on hierarchy? Have you been downgrading me like subtly this whole fucking time and I just haven't even known it?
No, I think the way I decide who's hosting for the episode is who did the research and is guiding us on the journey.
Well, okay. I told you before we started recording, I have a glass of Chianti in my hand. Madeline, it seems like you went and got a glass of wine.
Yeah,
Uh,
I usually don't like wine, but I've been dating someone new and they found a wine I like, a type of wine.
is it orange wine?
Unfortunately, it is an orange wine, but it is a specific kind of orange wine.
Could it accurately be described as funky?
It unfortunately could accurately be described as
You
funky.
are
Yeah.
a fucking cliche.
I know, but it tastes like a cider, and I like a cider, so I
Yeah,
think it kind of makes sense.
it probably tastes like kombucha.
It tastes a
Oh.
little like kombucha. Yeah.
Yeah. Did
Mhm.
you get it at Silver Lake Wine?
Mm-mm. At
Mm-hmm.
Water Village, baby, I don't leave my neighborhood.
Oh, okay. Well, so Madeline, why today am I drinking an Italian Chianti?
There's no telling, honestly. It could be so many reasons.
Because we are in an Italy. I don't know how to do the accent. I do one accent, which Paige, my girlfriend, really fucking hates, which is an English accent, and it just consists of me going "Oi, governor"
Oh,
over and over again.
okay. Is your
Uh,
British?
yeah, and I like she does not believe that that's what they say in England. That's what they say in England. You can't convince me otherwise. I've met English people, they all say "Oi, governor."
I think that's correct. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Um,
they do all say "Oi, governor," and I think she's trying to gaslight you.
Yeah, and like this, it also goes with my whole thing, which like I've been promoting endlessly just to like the everyone I talk to on a regular basis,
Mm-hmm.
which is that I think skinheads are going to be popular this year.
Yeah, you've been saying this. You said this maybe in one of our bonus episodes.
Yeah, I'm like not like I'm like I've been listening to a lot of Angelic Upstarts. It's a
Mm-hmm.
whole fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like I I'm really trying not to be the sort of person who's like I think we all have a friend who says the following to you when he's had a few too many. That first Screwdriver record though, before they got racist, is pretty fucking good, man.
Yeah, I would say I have a friend who said that, but I've definitely heard a guy,
Yeah, it's a thing you hear. Okay, so but we're talking about Italy.
We're talking about Italy,
And
not
specifically
England or
not England. And
or screwdriver.
I can't do the accent. I can do the thing with the hands. The It's just a pizza pie. Is that
Oh yeah. I went to Italy a couple months ago.
and they go, it's just a pizza pie.
Yeah, they all famously speak English
Like that.
like that. They actually do all speak English in Italy.
And they wear, I know this, they wear joggers a lot.
Where'd you get this piece of info from?
Like Italian friends.
Are you talking about The Sopranos? Are those your Italian friends? Have you been watching The Sopranos?
No, like I have like friends. Some of them are Italian.
From Italy. They don't live in Italy currently though, because you've
So
never
they
been.
live in like New Jersey.
Okay, you go to New Jersey often? I think you're just
I
describing
don't know.
Sopranos.
I have like a weird like like Minnesota is one of those fucking places where like they export a lot of people.
Uh,
Uh, New
yeah.
Jersey is also kind of like that. They export a lot of people.
Okay. Yes.
So I got a lot of New Jersey friends, which though I think I will be actually going to New Jersey and New York in May.
Okay. All right. So
Um,
David, you've heard it from David. In Italy, they wear joggers and they all say it's a pizza pie.
it's a pizza pie, like
It's a
that.
pizza pie. Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
I'll take it.
so today we are in fact talking about the Biennio Rosso, and for people who actually do speak Italian, please like I'm going to be butchering your language all day.
Hmm.
I'm really
Definitely.
sorry. So the Biennio Rosso is usually translated as the two red years in Italy between about 1919 and 1920. And I wanted to talk about this because I've been reading this book by Perry Anderson called Considerations of Western Marxism, and he makes the following claim that I think, Madeline, you're going to relate to.
Okay, hit
So,
me with it.
so this is the quote, and I like edited out a lot, though he's real snarky about most like Marxist theorists here.
Mhm.
So the extreme difficulty of language, characteristic of much Western Marxism in the 20th century, was never controlled by the tension of a direct or active relationship to a proletarian audience. On the contrary, its very surplus above the necessary minimum quotient of verbal complexity was the sign of its divorce from any popular practice. The case of Gramsci symbolizes, in its very exception, the historical rule that governed the general retreat of theory from classical Marxist parlance. The prison notebooks by Gramsci, the greatest of the whole tradition, were written by a revolutionary leader of the working class, not by a professional philosopher from a social background much poorer and lower than any important Marxist intellectual in Europe, whether Western or Eastern, before or after the First World War. Yet they contain numerous enigmas, many of them still unsolved by contemporary scholarship because of the brute censorship and privation of imprisonment. So, speaking of really abstruse, annoying Marxist diction, can you translate that for normal people?
Um, I'm not gonna lie to you, David. I zoned out halfway through it.
Okay, basically what he's saying is like most Marxists like most Western Marxists aren't like actually like organizers.
Yes, obviously. It's more of a, like an intellectual practice or like a theoretical consideration.
And they're like in the university, and so they have like no day-to-day contact with like the actual proletariat or the actual working class or just like poor people in general. And the only fucking exception to that is Antonio Gramsci, who was an organizer. But the thing about Gramsci, and I remember this from undergrad a lot, where I like got the most Gramsci, is that like the people trying to teach him to me were trying to teach him to me like he was some like big academic, and they were trying to make it way harder and weirder than it actually is.
That
So, but
makes sense. I mean, also, I would like to say that I think that in the West, we have this real tendency to only, I always say that people in the West are theoretically communists, but then they will not support any communist endeavor that actually happens around the world.
well,
And I
we're
think
gonna
this quote goes hand in hand with that idea.
we're gonna get really into theoretical communism in this, but the point of it is that like Gramsci did in fact have significant experience organizing with the working class. Um, And I think, right, like an examination of the two red years, this moment of like revolutionary potential that ultimately failed in Italy in the immediate aftermath of World War One is a great place to start so that both like we can understand like this like really cool fucking thing that ultimately didn't go well, but also so we can understand like an extremely important like Marxist thinker. Um, so he wrote in these like weird, obscure ways because of the censorship that was imposed on him because he was imprisoned by the fascists after they took power in Italy. Um, so Madeline, do you know anything about the Biennio Rosso?
No.
Okay, so do you know anything about how fascism happened in Italy?
I do know that Benito Mussolini just like announced it, which I thought is funny.
Yeah, he never. Mussolini was actually like weirdly a journalist, which is very funny to me. He was a very like Boris Johnson figure, um, in Italy. But the years of fascism were preceded by this like years of extreme popular unrest, in which a lot of people actually thought that like Italy was about to see like a communist revolution after the model of the Soviet Union. So we got to back up a little bit, and like under normal circumstances, I'd be like, play Thus Spake Zarathustra from like 2001 and Space Odyssey, because we're not going to go back to like the beginning of the fucking universe like we sometimes do. We're just going to go back to the beginning of the war. And
Okay,
it
perfect.
had remained initially neutral Well, but eventually it kind of saw the way the winds were blowing, and Italy, remember, was like less than a century old as like a country,
Hmm.
right? Like so Italy got unification in, I want to say, 1861, but they went to war starting in around 1915 with Austria-Hungary on the side of the Allies, which is like France and England, and then like America came along later or whatever. And like the basic premise that like the Italian government had was like, we're going to expand our territory. We're going to get maybe like Croatia out of this, which will hella rock for us. Um, and it will like the sort of like patriotic nationalism will solidify Italy as like a fucking country. Uh, at the conclusion of hostilities, Italy had lost over 500,000 soldiers, and nearly half of those were from the northern region of the country, where Turin, the heart of the workers' council movement, was located. The labor conditions during the war created conditions for extreme worker militancy in the immediate aftermath of the war. Martin Clark put it thus: the explanation for militancy rests mainly on considerations of power. The period of greatest popular agitation in Italian history do not correlate particularly well with rapid social change or industrial breakdown, but they were all periods of great state weakness where the political structure was being radically changed or at least seriously threatened. The techniques of social control available to the old ruling elites were no longer effective. In those conditions, militancy pays. So basically, right, like Italy kind of made a devil's bargain getting into the war. They didn't end up getting any of the territorial gains that they thought they would get at the Treaty of Versailles. And Clark's really clear that workers' ideological commitments are not really the main driving engine of worker militancy, but they are important for how workers' power is used in moments of state weakness. If workers' main goal under such conditions is to secure concessions from capital within the existing system, militancy also provides short-sighted or illusory benefits if it isn't like attended by extreme ideological commitment. Uh, when Italy entered the war, or it led predictably to a huge growth. And guess what, Madeline? You
I have
there?
no idea. Yeah. What I mean, a huge growth in dead people. It's a
Well,
war.
dead people, like 500,000 dead. We've covered the dead people. We've covered the dead
Definitely
people.
not borders to indicating they now have access to Croatia. I don't remember that happening.
No, no, no. But like we are going to get there's like an extremely funny incident to do with Croatia and like in the aftermath. But like what do you need to like fight a war?
Production?
Industrial production.
Yeah,
So
production. Okay, this makes sense.
so it's estimated that the Italian government spent around 13,761 million lira on supplying its army during the war. Industrial production by the end of the war had increased sixfold.
Wow.
Uh, where there had been essentially no aircraft production before the war, at the end of the war, Italy possessed 6,523 planes. Remember, that's like a lot for like planes had just been fucking invented.
Right.
Um, so they also produced at the same time 14,820 aircraft engines, with the majority being exported to Britain. And Turin, in the north of Italy, Fiat, which this is one of those instances where I'm going to fuck this up, Fabrici Italiana Automobili Torino. Or, Madeline, do you know what they say Fiat also stands for?
What?
Fix it again, Tony.
Fix it again, Tony. I was like, fix or repair daily is Ford. It's going to be something like that.
So they grew from capital holdings of about 25.5 million lira in 1914 to 125 million by Armistice Day. At the
Wow.
end of the war, Fiat produced 90% of the automobiles made in Italy and was the largest automobile manufacturer in Europe. Also, kind of self-evidently, the war distorted the Italian economy to its own ends. Wool production, for example, boomed while silk production withered. And those firms that were able to marshal resources to secure profitable government contracts, such as Fiat and Saldo, Ilva, and Pirelli, grew exponentially, while smaller firms were either absorbed or died on the vine. So before the war, there had been like a kind of like small holding liberal capitalist regime in Italy. the war kind of changed that, where like the big firms that were able to secure government contracts basically took over everything. Uh, because the Italian government preferred to do business with well-connected firms, a few regions, almost entirely in the industrialized north, such as Lombardy, Piedmont, and Liguria, prospered, while more agricultural southern regions fell behind. And one of the things you see is that like the South has like tends to retain a more like pre-Italian nationalist regional nationalism.
Okay, that
Um,
makes sense.
so
And
you
wait,
get
what are we talking about by the South? Like, what is the region
like
defined as the South?
Sicily and places like that.
Sense, yeah,
Um,
okay. Because Sicily's relatively isolated from literally an island.
yeah, yeah. I like for this I like mostly focused on the north because the north is kind of where shit happens.
Yeah,
But like right, like so like up in the north and like Piedmont and Lombardy, they were like, hell yeah, we're like fucking Italy now. And in the south they were like, nah, we're like Sicilian. Um,
right,
So, in order to facilitate industrial production, the government established 297 special commissions composed of heads of prominent industrial firms and financial capital interests in order to oversee industrial mobilization. This meant that the heads of the leading manufacturers, which was Giovanni Agnelli of Fiat, Pio Peroni from Ansaldo, etc., sat on a central committee in Rome and directed the activities of regional committees made up of high-ranking Army and Navy officers, as well as two representatives of the employers and two representatives of the workers' trade unions and two economic analysts. So basically, what's happening is like they are setting up like a state-run centralized economy in order to do the fucking war effort. By
right,
1917, the committees are expanded to include more or civilian economic experts. But even at the time, like the trade unions were like, dude, like they don't give a shit about us. Like we have like no power. Like the economic experts always side with the industrialists. We can't gain any sort of wage concessions on anything. And as if by fiat, the big industrial firms involved in supplying the war economy could declare certain industries auxiliary and subject to military discipline, which meant that workers would be supervised by armed soldiers. Uh, Also, if a sector of the economy was deemed essential, it was made illegal to leave or change one's job without written permission, which usually not fucking granted. And a decree was issued in 1916, which allowed workers from industries that were not deemed essential to also be subject to military discipline. As Clark puts it, industrialists may have lost their competitive birthright, but they certainly gained their mess of pottage, sanctified too by the thought of patriotic duty nobly done. So basically, it's like you're putting money in fiat's pockets every fucking day. You're working crazy ass hours. You're getting paid nothing, but it's like your patriotic duty.
right,
So during the war, the Italian economy becomes really hierarchical and regulated, with the state serving as the basically only client for like the large industrial firms. All this was quite contrary to the competitive small firm atmosphere of pre-war liberal Italy, but many of the old assumptions of old Italy had been undermined. And there were like all of these attempts to articulate the political economic conditions of the wartime and immediate post-war Italy, which was like really productivist and descended from someone that we've actually talked about before. Madeline, can you guess who?
was it Taylor?
It was fucking Frederick Ass
You
Taylor.
hate Taylor.
No, I'm actually like I'm coming around on Taylor. I'm coming around.
Oh yeah, okay, okay,
We'll talk about it. Like I think
okay, okay.
right, like I think you can make Taylor a Marxist. Um,
I mean, I'm gonna say like the idea of central planning, obviously something that I like. The idea of bureaucracy, obviously something that I like. But it's you see the privatization being the element that really defines
Yeah,
fascism.
it's just like who has the stopwatch? Somewhat famously, when we talked about Taylor before, when we were talking about unions in America, Taylor was like going around to factories with like a fucking stopwatch and like timing the movements of steel workers.
Right.
Um, and like it amounts to like who the fuck has the stopwatch, right? Like if like the big like if the capitalists have the stopwatch, it's no fucking good. Right.
Hmm.
But if like the people have the stopwatch, maybe it's good.
Maybe it's not so
Um,
bad. No, it's totally true.
so like the idea was to like extend Friedrich Taylor's ideas to like politics, not just the economy. Instead of like a laissez-faire economy, industry should be controlled by experts and technicians. And this started extending to theories of the Italian state, where it was like, we don't like what the fuck is with those like parliament shit? Like this is fucking annoying. Like people vote for stuff that's like stupid and irrational. Like we could have like full employment and like a healthy social safety net if we just like got rid of representative democracy and had everything run by experts, right? Like that was kind of the fucking idea. So the state would be structured around vast industrial cartels that would rationalize production and labor relations, would become basically a technical rather than ideological problem. And at the time, there were these two books by this guy, Walter Rathenau, who was like a German industrialist, von Kommendingen, The New of Things to Come, and Die Neue Wirtschaft, The New Economy, which went through several printings in Italy and like articulated this emergent ideology. And De Neue Wirtschaft, Rathenau argues that an economic and social science is but applied techniques. A state, an economy, a society deserve to vanish when they mean only a state of equilibrium of interests held in check, when they are only associations for production and consumption, armed or unarmed. So basically, Rathenau's like idea is like we're gonna run the state like a business, which like that always goes well, right, Madeline?
Very Trumpian.
Yeah, but like Rathenau, it's like okay, so there's this like funny fucking thing about Rathenau, which is like on the one hand, he seems to have predicted the cartelized post-democratic illiberal state. On the other hand, he was one of the architects of the Weimar Republic, like an attempt to create something in post-war Germany under conditions of hyperinflation. He's also fucking Jewish, and he died at the hands of the I'm just going to call it the organization Consul, a right-wing terrorist group descended from the Freikorps and predecessors to the Nazi Party, who blamed him for the collapse of the German Second Reich during the First World War. So right, like the predecessors to the Nazis were like, we should have kept doing the fucking war, man. This motherfucker just wants to have like a weird like neoliberal economy. Fuck that. Um, and he pops up, and I've like kind of forgotten about this, but he pops up in Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow. In that book, there are a bunch of Nazis despairing of an explanatory ideology at the end of the Second World War, and the imminent post-war order, and they contact Rathenau by seance, and he tells them, quote, "If you want the truth, I presume, you must look into technology of these matters, even into the heart of certain molecules. It is they, after all, which dictate the temperatures, pressures, rates of flow, costs, profits, the shape of towers." So essentially, that like Pynchon is doing like Taylorism as metaphysics via Rathenau. Like if we just get down to like a certain like molecular level of determinism, like we can understand everything in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah. If
Okay,
you're a
so
Nazi, it probably makes great sense.
what's that?
If you're a Nazi, it probably makes so much sense.
Yeah, but it's like so because it's like so like Rathenau is such like a fascinating contradiction because like he really wanted like what was essentially like a state as corporation, right? On the other hand, because he was Jewish, right, like he was never going to be accepted by like the far right in Germany in the post-war order where everyone was like pissed off that they were defeated, experiencing hyperinflation, like and so like the Freikorps and the organization Consul were just like out there doing putches and like murdering guys. I think they like assassinated something like 250 people in the immediate post-war era, of
Wow.
whom Raphael was the last. So back to Italy. On the other side of the debate about how the Italian state was to be reconstituted after the war, a lot of the most prominent industrialists kind of wanted, like, they wanted to go back to, like, the pre war liberal regime. And those who had benefited from wartime industrialization were especially excited to like get back to like liberalization. So Giovanni Agnelli of Fiat, for example, was advocating for something kind of like the modern European common market. Agnelli argued that after the initial period of reorganization, the effect of a tremendous change from separate national markets to a single continental market would create such possibilities of trade that industries will receive the same rousing stimulus which American industry experienced after the Civil War. So basically, what happened was the war concentrated industrial production in like a very, very few firms in Italy. And then in the immediate post-war era, they did liberalization, but now everything's owned by like six guys. Does that
Got
make
it.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Alfredo Rocco, who became kind of like one of the architects of like the constitutional regime under Mussolini's fascist state, advocated for incorporating the trade unions into the state apparatus in exchange for full employment, social welfare, and mass production of consumer goods. And by the way, this is one of the funny things. So Mussolini had been a journalist for the socialist newspaper Avanti for like a brief time at the beginning of the war and was like staunchly anti-war, which like the Italian Socialist Party was like really anti-war and they were one of the few people to be like anti-war. And then he was like, nah, fuck this. And like he like signed up for the military, he went to the front and he was like, you know what rocks? Killing people. So
Oh, okay. He came around fast.
yeah, he like well, so Avanti kicked him out because he was like started like publishing articles that were like, "Hey, what if like war is good?" And they were like, "No, man, you can't be a socialist anymore. Fuck you." And like I think it's like a bit of a Reagan situation where Mussolini was like, "You hurt my feelings."
That
Um, So the big issue, like in the immediate post-war era, is how to fit labor into any kind of like ideological scheme. Inflation at the time of armistice reached around 30%. By the way, this is like nothing compared to what it hit in like Germany and Austria-Hungary, but like 30% is fucking bad, right? And the industrial working class of Italy, it was at once too powerful, too alienated, and too restive to really be easily incorporated into like a kind of corporate state model envisioned by both like Rocco and by Rathenau and people like that. By 1919, most of the wartime labor controls were abolished, but at this point, like the damage was done, and a few large industrial firms controlled fucking everything. A couple like socialist parties did gain support, one of which was the Socialist Party, and the other was the Catholic Popular Party, which was a quote unquote non-confessional popular Catholic type party that had some
okay.
social, yeah, so like they're fucking weird. They don't matter that much. The Socialist Party is kind of the fucking thing. And hold on, Madeline, I sent you a screenshot with all of the abbreviations.
Oh yeah, yeah, you did. Hold on. Let me pull that up.
Okay, pull it up. Uh,
Hold on. Okay. Which one are
okay, Okay, so we will be talking about oh fuck, where is it?
is
The
it the
PSI.
PSI? Yeah, okay.
PSI. Can you say that for us?
Partido Socialista Italiano.
Yeah, okay, so that fucking thing. Like that is like
The
one
Italian
of
Socialist Party. Yeah.
yeah, so they win 156 of I think there were like 600 seats in
That's
like
pretty good.
parliament, but they're like winning some fucking seats. And the Catholic Popular Party also won 100 seats. So like they're like on the fucking up and up. Like they're like on the come up. Uh, the war had really dramatically depressed real wages for working people, a quarter below pre-war standards, and by 1918, we're at about 64% of wages before the war. And the constitution of the working class had also changed. Women entered the workplace in large numbers, and their wages lagged considerably behind so-called skilled engineering industries dominated by men because they tended to work in what kind of thing, Madeline?
What like sewing or what? What do you mean?
Garment
I
manufacturing.
knew it. I knew it was gonna be sewing. I was like, this
And which
this is
is
what keeps happening in this episode. Actually, you're asking me questions, and I'm like, I don't know, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, like,
Yeah.
what's
Like
this
when
quote
like
mean?
they're
And I'm
younger
like,
movies.
I don't know, and then I'm like, oh, it's exactly
And
that.
Madeline, for like I'm asking you specifically this question.
What's the women's work?
Why would like right like garment manufacturing is totally unskilled labor, right?
um, there are people nowadays who think that your clothes are just automatically made by machines.
Yeah.
This always kills me because I'm like, you ever try to sew a fucking pair of pants? You ever try to set in a zipper fly in a pair of pants? Do you want to lose your mind for 6 hours? Give it a shot. Give that a shot.
They think all clothes are 3D printed now.
They really do. They do think a lot of people do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so right, like that's fucking ridiculous. But like that, like in terms of like understanding the statistics, like because the composition of the working class had changed by the entrance of women into the working class, uh, men in specialized engineering fields like automobile manufacturing tended actually to gain like very, very modest wage gains while like but like women being included now in the statistics in numbers that they hadn't been prior to the war meant that like overall wages were down to 64%. Does that make
Got it.
sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah.
So working conditions were really fucking harsh at Fiat for the duration of the war. 70-hour weeks were compulsory, which like that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want
By 1916, it was estimated that nearly all workers actually worked 75 hours. That's even fucking crazier.
Yeah, I hate that.
Uh, uh, Italy wasn't doing well in the war. At the Battle of Caporetto in October and November, in what is now Slovenia, Italy lost around 13,000 soldiers in one fucking go, and over 200,000 were taken captive. And
Jesus.
earlier that year, responding to economic pressures at home, bread riots started breaking out on August 22nd of 1917, which demanded an end to the war. So, right, I think we know this from just like seeing how fucking wars go, right? Like,
Yeah,
if the war's going well, and we're like really kicking ass, if you're kicking ass, you're like, fuck yeah, man, I love war.
I love war, right? But if you're getting your ass kicked,
You're like, I want to take my fucking ball. I want to go home. I
I
want
hate war.
I hate war.
What is
So
it good for? Absolutely nothing.
yeah. You are Edwin Starr. Actually, you know what the okay, here's the fucking thing. Uh that's that's not Edwin Starr's best song.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, this is
But
you know
Edwin
what?
Starr is not the performing name. It's a band, right?
No, but it's like War is Edwin Starr.
Okay.
And before it was War or whatever the fuck,
Hmm.
right? It was just Edwin Starr, who was, I believe, on Rick Tick Records. And I think maybe had like a single on Correct Tone or
Okay.
something. And he had a song that's like a real classy, like little Northern Soul hit that's like still relatively cheap to go buy, like the 45 version, that's called Agent Double O Soul.
Oh, that's a great name.
The fucking rocks. And like all you see all those kids on the TikTok in Bristol, right, dancing to their Northern Soul. You're seeing this, right?
No, that's not what happens on my TikTok.
I this is because I think it's because I'm into skinheads now. They're showing me Northern Soul content.
Yeah,
Uh,
my TikTok today tried to cancel me because Fork is epileptic and her doggy neurologist said that she didn't need medication because her seizures weren't that bad. And so now I'm the devil. So that's what happens.
I gotta say, I think you are doing your level best to really dilute the meaning of the word cancel. Uh
I mean, you should see these people. They're out for blood, David. They're
yeah,
out for
they're out for blood, but they are stupid and nobody, and like you could just not pay attention to them.
blood. So what you're saying is I'm special. Yeah, that's what I need to hear.
I'm just
Uh-huh.
saying they're like these are not people that that like are serious.
Uh-huh. They are deeply unserious people, as the communists might say.
Yeah, well, as like just anyone with a who's smart might say, like that's not.
deeply unserious people. If you're not a
and,
communist,
like
you're out there
I
listening. That is the ultimate communist insult. If communist calls you deeply unserious, you got to move away and change your name because it's.
well, we're gonna hear about some deeply unserious communists in a little
I
bit.
bet we are. Oh, okay. All right.
So
So,
right,
aside
like
from the war song, yes, when war is going well, you love war. When
yeah,
war
so
is
all
not
this
going
rioting,
well, you don't love it.
you don't like and like right, like this is like remember how when like we had the surge.
The soda?
No, I mean maybe, but like in Iraq,
Yes.
and everyone
Not the soda. Yes.
or the soda in Iraq. I don't know what kind of vending machines they had over there. Uh, uh, like you got like everyone was like, "Fuck yeah, this rocks, America, fuck yeah," the whole fucking thing. And then when it was like, "Oh wait, what are those coffins over there?" Everyone was like, "We hate war. Here's our copy of Howard Zinn."
Right.
Um,
That's true. That did happen. Yeah.
yeah, that was universally, we all said it at once.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so like all of this rioting, by the way, was like not like there was like no like revolutionary intent. It was not like an attempt to overthrow the government. They were just pissed about the war and pissed that they were hungry. And they were like, oh, you know what we do whenever we're pissed? We riot and we take the bread. They actually broke into a neighboring Catholic church and stole all of the provisions that the Catholic Church had been hoarding. Uh,
That makes sense. They should do that. Yeah.
yeah, so oh, there was like not really like there was like all of this like sort of like ideological and political naivety and a division within the poor and working class between the industrial working class and the military. Because the thing was that if you were in the industrial working class, you got an exemption from like serving in the military, which meant that like all of the soldiers, a lot of whom were like from like rural regions of northern Italy, were like, so like we like die and like these motherfuckers are like complaining about bread, fuck them. And so like the military was like really like down to like lay down the fucking law on rioters.
Got it.
um and like the principal effect of the wartime labor regime was really disciplinary. Soldiers often like resented the working class exemption from military service, and they would, just like put down riots wherever they fucking did. Workers who, or wherever they wanted to, workers who walked off the job or struck were also sentenced to terms in military prison.
Oof.
Um,
Wow.
so, regional committees, on the other hand, did some work in small ways to ameliorate class conflict through securing, albeit modest, wage increases for workers. And trade unions, meanwhile, were pretty fucking ineffective. A good example of this is something called the Commission for the Study of Measures for the Post-War Period, which was established by the Orlando government, who'd replaced Paolo Basselli after the Battle of Caporetto, and like 13,000 people died, 200,000 taken captive. So basically, like the left wing of the country's leading trade union organization. Madeline, can you say the CGL one in the thing?
All right. Let's see. My Italian's pretty good from the trip, I will say.
Mhm.
Somebody from Italy is going to be like, no, it's not, you dumb bitch. Confederazione. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Okay,
great.
but then I don't know if it's general or generale.
I
That's
think
kind
I
of
think
Spanish. So I think it's
I think that's Spanish. I
yeah,
think it's
generale del lavoro.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So the General Confederation of Labor. We're
Yeah,
just gonna call it I every time I say CGL, I'm gonna make you say that, by the way. Uh,
Confederazione Generale del Lavoro.
and the
The
leading
PAIA,
socialist party, the PSI, Madeline,
Partito Socialista Italiano.
really resisted participating in the commission, but the right wing of the PSI regarded it as a way to secure concessions. So the right wing of the party drew up a plan which urged the abolition of the Senate, so get rid of like the fucking like, like the reserve of like the bourgeoisie and the aristocracy, universal suffrage, tax reform, and an 8-hour day. Rinaldo Rigola, who was head of the PSI, was really, really into participating in the commission, but like basically the entirety of the CGL, Madeline,
Oh shit, the CGL. Which one? Oh yeah, Confederazione Generale del Lavoro.
was like, nah, don't fuck with that. Like that's like all the industrialists are on that thing. So he left to participate in it, and he was replaced by Ludovico de Aragona, who
Come on,
was
David,
tasked
try
with
to do the accent.
Ludovico d'Aragona.
Yeah, that was great. That you're killing it. Do more of
I
that.
feel like nobody can see my shoulders going up and down,
Yeah,
so I
your shoulders are going up with every single syllable. My hand is doing the thing every time I say it. They don't
don't
know. Maybe we'll post the video on the Patreon.
And he like kind of like managed to get so like the CGL not well okay it'll get crazy if we keep doing it, but the CGL was basically like the AFL-CIO of Italy, like they
Yeah,
were
you said it was
basically
reformist, right? It's like, they're kind of representing the workers, but how much?
well, yeah, but like also in the sense that it was basically a confederation of like all of the industrial craft unions in the country.
Yeah,
And
got it.
like the PSI was like the large, like sort of kind of like revolutionary-ish socialist party-ish.
Mhm.
Um, right. And so like Ludovico,
Yeah, the shoulders. I
like
see
the
them. I
like
see it happening. Yeah.
yeah. Like he managed to forge like this alliance between the two things in which strikes were going to be coordinated by the PSA as opposed to the CGL, and this will be important later, but for now it's enough to know that there were important points of dissension between the dominant Socialist Party leadership and their mass base of support. Uh, God, I'm gonna fuck this up, but I'm gonna try it. So there were these things that the CGL had set up during the war called the Commissioni Interna, and internal commissions. Uh,
Commissioni interne.
yeah, there we go, that thing. So they're set up to like handle basically workers' grievances, and they become really fucking important. Like they're like kind of like the linchpin of this whole fucking thing. And
Okay.
they're like basically the main organ as opposed to the CGL through which workers are handling grievances. And trade unions are at this point like kind of reduced to like administrative functions and often sided with like employers over workers in contract negotiations and acted like enforcers of workplace discipline more than advocates of the workers.
Got it.
Okay, so I said we are going to talk about fucking Gramsci. Now we're fucking talking about Gramsci.
This is good
Uh,
for me. I need a little Gramsci kind of,
yeah, I mean, are you a big are you a Gramsci head?
I'm not a Gramsci head. I wouldn't say that. I would say everything I've learned about Gramsci, I've learned because people are like, you need to learn this about Gramsci. And then I'm like, fine, I'll learn this about Gramsci.
Gramsci's a fucking he was a smart
People love
guy.
Gramsci. Everybody loves Gramsci. People got,
Gramsci
yeah,
like right like I feel like the right okay, like you have like your like every people like the Trotskyists create like fucking wackadoo. Uh, but Trotsky, pretty smart fucking guy. Uh,
Trotsky had a few bangers here and there.
a lot of fucking bangers.
Trust,
How the
you know,
revolution armed itself, fucking banger. But
this is
uh,
David coming out as a Trotskyist.
no, I'm just how is it that like right like I'm like oh man a fucking smart guy is smart. Like I'm not like I'm gonna join who's that like weird guy who became really right wing. Oh, fucking think
Rogan?
of no. Like the one who was like who like if you went to college in like the early 2000s, you definitely got approached by one of his freaky ass supporters. Um,
Who is it? Who are you talking about?
Fuck. I'll figure it out. I'll think of it and get back to you.
I
But
went to
and
an apparel-based trade school.
um,
I don't know.
but and like Lenin, like those are the like communists of the early 20th century that you're like, fuck yeah. Like you got your thing with Stalin. I don't got fuck Stalin.
You
That guy's
know,
dumb. He
I
was
could
like not smart.
Stalin industrialized the economy. Stalin put people in. I mean,
He was
Stalin did. Stalin didn't. That's the biggest misnomer. All these people, everybody's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
Stalin
yeah.
did this. Stalin did this, and it's like Stalin didn't do it. There was collective leadership. Stalin kept trying to resign. He tried to resign like 3 times or some shit, maybe even more.
I'm just saying, right?
It was
And
a
like in
very
terms of we're
collective
not
leadership. These aren't
we're,
dictators. These aren't sole people kind of doing things. So
well, no, I'm just talking about like the theory-ish
yeah,
side.
Stalin was not an intellectual per se.
He was dumb. He was a dumb guy.
I don't think he was dumb.
I'm coming out as Stalin is dumb. That is
Okay.
not okay,
Okay.
whatever.
You know what? He
But
didn't write a
Grant,
lot, but he wrote a little.
yeah, and it's bad. His writings are bad. Um,
He wrote poems, David.
yeah, which like your favorite medium.
Yeah, I do hate poetry notoriously. Should I read a poem really fast?
Yeah, read a Stalinist
Okay.
poem.
All right. But while we're on this, before we move on, Stalin poem. Let's see what we got. Dun, dun. Stalin Museum, Stalin poems. Here we go. Old Nanika. All right, here we go. Our Nanika is old. His bravery left him. How could the old age take his iron strength away? How often you could see him with swift vitality, swinging his sickle across the valley, using his vigorous sickle. He piled mountain upon mountain of the corn that he cut, until his perspiring face turned crimson. And now he cannot even move his old crippled legs. He lies still and dreams a lot, or tells his grandson stories of his past. Sometimes when a song is heard from the near valleys, his still brave heart starts to beat stronger. He rises up, despite his frailty, leaning on his crutches, and delightedly glances and smiles at the boy. Sosolo.
Man of Steel, everybody.
There you go. Song
Yeah,
poet.
that is a
No.
bad poem.
You know, I feel like I didn't do it justice with my reading either. It's been a while since I've read a poem out loud.
I will say, I remember you like you really putting your back into reading some poems back in the day. And I was always like,
Because I hate them.
no, I mean you were into it. Like, well,
No, I've always hated poems.
yeah, I know, which is
Mockery and
silly.
derision.
But I've remember I can think of a couple instances where you've really like given it your all, so to speak, and it always
No,
comes off
I'm a
as
performer at heart, is the
yeah,
thing.
it comes off as disingenuous, I will say. Uh,
Good. Then it's working. You're not of a genuine interest in poems. Perfect.
so, so in the immediate aftermath of the war, to get back to the fucking Italy,
Okay, okay,
to get
okay.
like I fucking hate Stalin. You love him.
I don't love Stalin. I don't know Stalin.
You're
As
into
the
it.
CIA said, Stalin is merely the captain of the ship. He's not a dictator as we think of him as the Western world.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. That's like I should okay.
Okay.
Uh in the summer of 1919, I almost said 2019, a campaign got underway to like kind of transform the internal commissions in Turin into something like factory cooperatives that would be like sort of democratically run and would take over basically the management of the entire factory from like the owners.
That does
Uh
make sense. I mean, Northern Italy to this day still has some of the highest concentrations of worker co-ops out of anywhere in the world. I mean, I think it does have the highest concentrations in the world, and Turin is in Northern Italy, so that tracks.
yeah, it's in Piedmont. So who, Madeline, do you think was one of the leaders of this movement?
I'm guessing Gramsci. We're going Gramsci. We're talking Gramsci.
Fucking Gramsci. And you know, the fucking thing about it is, he was pretty like he was an extremely unlikely candidate to become like a like labor socialist organizer in Turin, of all places, because he was not from Turin or from the north. He was Sardinian. Uh,
Pretty far south, very far,
Pretty
the
fucking far
opposite side
south.
of the country. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was born in 1891 to like actually a pretty prominent Sardinian family that had sort of fallen on hard times. One of his uncles was like a treasury official, and another was like a railway inspector, and a third was an army officer who trained like one of the old kings, King Victor Emmanuel.
Mhm.
Uh, when he was 7 years old, his father was imprisoned for embezzlement, but the charges were probably kind of trumped up as punishment for supporting the losing candidate in a local election. This is like Italian politics, like everything is personal. Um, so Gramsci's father's imprisonment meant basically poverty for the family. His mother took in watching, and Gramsci was forced to work from age 11 onward. When he finished primary school, there was basically no money for secondary school, and he was only allowed to go to secondary school when his father returned from prison when he was 15, and he received a modest scholarship to the University of Turin, which is how he winds up in the fucking north. This is just like an incongruous fact, or like another fucking incongruous thing, whatever. Uh, he had a hunchback, probably from a fall down the stairs as a child. So like, which like people comment on a lot later, right? Where they're like, yeah, actually, I'll give the quote later when it comes up, but people don't like the fucking hunchback.
Okay. All right.
At the University of Turin, Gramsci meets two students, Angelo Tosca and Palmiro Togliatti. Tosca was from Piedmont, and along with Togliatti and Gramsci, was one of the founders of the Italian Communist Party much later in the story. We'll get to that later. It late like this is just kind of like some like post-war tidbits just to be like, maybe don't trust this Tosca guy. So he was expelled from the Communist Party over his opposition to Stalin and eventually fled to France, where he became a Vichy collaborator during World War II. Uh, Togliatti, on the other hand, became one of the heroes of the Italian Communist Party and was credited with growing the membership to around 2 million people after World War II. So that's just,
Wow.
we're not going to get a lot about Tosca and Togliatti. We will get some, but like I figure let's just get like the thumbnail version of who these fuckers were.
Yeah.
Uh Tosca was the guy who like kind of initially brought Gramsci into the socialist youth movement. Gramsci started out as like a kind of a Sardinian nationalist, and at the start of the war was actually in favor of Italy's intervention in the war, which was like not popular among socialists. And even like when they were founding the Italian Communist Party, like much later, everyone was like, hey man, didn't you like write an article where you were like really in favor of like Italy fighting in World War One? Like maybe you should like fucking die. Um but he was like really influenced by this like Italian idealist philosopher called Benedetto Croce, who was kind of like a liberal Hegelian, and he later like abandoned Croce's philosophy, but he was to comment that like at the time that the Biennio Rosso was happening, he was still somewhat of a Crocean outlook. After the war's actual outbreak, he abandoned his interventionism, and after the 1917 bread riots, most of the editorial of staff of Avanti was arrested, which meant that Gramsci kind of became de facto editor of like the main newspaper of the Socialist Party because everyone was in jail from the bread riots. Um,
That'll happen. Yeah.
what's that?
That'll happen. Yeah.
That's
Everyone will
that's
get arrested
how
over the bread riots. That makes sense.
you got to be like the one guy who like doesn't go to the bread riots and just be like, I guess I'm in charge now, man.
You got to plan for it. You got to leave a guy behind.
Yeah.
Like the lone survivor. What's that thing they do in the United States where there's like a big meeting and all the important politicians have to go, and then they're like, we're leaving that guy, the dedicated survivor.
Oh, it's
The,
like what it's like when like the State of the Union thing happens, like the vice president doesn't come in case something happens. Can you
yeah, like
imagine like
that.
this is something that I think about sometimes, which is like my wager on like whether Trump like just because he's like old and in poor health probably like survives this fucking thing is like 50-50 at this point. Can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine President fucking Vance? That's crazy.
I mean, it's all bad. It's all so bad.
Like Trump, it's like, okay, like cool. I have like learned to accept that this is the reality we live in. Like I don't have to like it. But like having to like look at like Mr. Emo eyeshadow right wing Peter Thiel shithead,
Mm-hmm.
I don't fucking like that. That's
Yeah.
not
I mean, none of it's good. None of it's good.
so Gramsci in like the issue of Avanti, like his first issue as editor, which was also the centenary of Marx's birth, he wrote, with Marx, history continues to be the domain of ideas, but of spirit of the conscious activity of a single or associated individuals, but ideas, spirit take on substance, lose their arbitrariness, they are no longer fictitious, religious, or sociological abstractions. Their substance is in the economy and practical activity and the systems and relations of production and exchange. History as that which happens in purely practical, economic, and moral activity. So basically, what he's saying, like, this is like really basic, but it's like worth being like, this is the moment where like he goes from being like, he also in the same article, he's like, am I a Marxist? What a stupid question. Everyone's a little bit of a Marxist. They just don't think about it. Um, which is like I've always been my position is that like if you think about it for 2 seconds, you're kind of a Marxist.
Well, yeah.
Um,
Like what all you have to really believe to be a Marxist is that the collapse of capitalism is somewhat inevitable because it's a system based on contradictions.
I mean, I don't even think I think like if you like if you believe like right, like that the material conditions and like the sociological conditions that they produce inevitably lead to contradictions.
There you go. That's even more baseline. Yeah. Who's
Yeah,
gonna
right. Like that's like the bait. Like I don't like I right like because I tend to be like a Marxism without guarantees kind of motherfucker where I'm like I don't think like it, revolution's inevitable. I don't even think it's imminent. Um, but you know, prove me wrong, people. So in any case, right, like this is like kind of like Gramsci's like transition from being this like kind of like liberal Hegelian, Croce, democratic or social democrat kind of guy, associated with the Socialist Party to being like I'm a fucking I'm a Marxist. So he leaves Avanti and with Tosca and Togliatti, he founds the Ordine Nuovo. Madeline, can you say that Italian style?
ordine nuovo?
There we go. So
This is just what I'm here for this episode, just to have fun butchering the Italian accent, but in a dramatic way.
and like you're doing, I can't see you because I have like my screen on my notes. Uh,
I am doing the hand.
you're doing the hand.
I'm
Okay.
doing the hand.
Uh, so he's not like Gramsci's like not initially like a great organizer, but he's like really well liked by fellow communists. Vladimir de Gaulle, who was the Comintern emissary to Italy in 1919, said that he had, quote, no power of attraction for the masses, firstly, because he's not much of a speaker, secondly, because he's too young, too short, and hunchbacked, which makes the audience uncomfortable.
Wow.
Uh,
It's real.
yeah, I mean, like, real talk from De Gaulle. He did in a letter to Lenin report that Gramsci was stupendously interesting, small, deformed, but with a head full of ideas.
I hope somebody describes me that way one day.
This- I always describe you as deformed. Whenever I'm like looking for you in a crowd, I'm like, have you seen that deformed lady?
That looks like a child.
Yeah, small, deformed, head full of ideas.
Head full of ideas. Stupendously interesting, though.
Yeah. Uh, so Gramsci's like really early on, and he's kind of getting these ideas a little bit from Tosca at this point. Like Tosca is the only one of these guys, like with Togliatti and Gramsci, who has like a lot of contact with like the local trade unions. And in fact, like Tosca is the one who gets the local trade unions to uh, finance the first issue of the Ordine Nuovo, Madeline.
Ordine nuovo.
So the first issue comes out in May of 1919, and it's basically a review of socialist ideas with the idea of working towards a cultural penetration of Marxist ideology. Gramsci wrote in the initial article, every revolution has been preceded by intense critical activity, cultural penetration, and permeation of ideas among groups of men at first unwilling to accept them. And this becomes kind of like a hallmark when like you think about like what Gramsci talks about where he talks about like controlling sort of like cultural hegemony through like dissemination of communist ideas and like sort of like filtering communist ideas through popular mediums and the prison notebooks and all of that shit. People tend to be like, oh, cool. Like we're the organic intellectuals because like we have like a lot of higher ed degrees and we like work at a fancy college. What he's talking about is like, no, you actually just have to like be constantly convincing the working class to be Marxist because they don't know that that's what they are.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's
A
like
lot of
really
sense.
it's like really fucking baseline where he's like in like a very early 20th century way, he's also just like these motherfuckers are alcoholics. Like we gotta like get them to stop drinking at a lot of points.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a sip of my Chianti.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah, but no, I mean like his deal is like you guys got to be disciplined. You got to be on your shit. You can't be like drinking and carousing and all of that shit. Uh so the Ordine Nuovo were committed to a break with the quote unquote reformist tendencies of the union leaders and the officials of the PSI. Madeline PSI.
PSI is the Partito Socialista Italiano. That is the actual Italian Socialist Party, not the reformist kind of thing,
No,
right?
no, they're that's the same. It's all one party. Like
It is?
the CGL is like basically the AFL-CIO of Italy. Like they're like the confederation of all the trade unions.
Right, right, right.
The SI is this kind of like even their stance, like the PSI is full of a bunch of people who are like, you know, it's cool. We get like union dues and like get to be a party, and that like rocks.
Okay,
Um,
interesting.
like even their like anti-war stance was basically like, we're not gonna be pro-war, but we're not gonna protest this shit.
Okay.
So the PSI, not fucking great. Uh, Commenting on the early days of the magazine's founding, Gramsci wrote that the only thing that united the founders of the magazine in their meetings was a vague passion for a really vague proletarian culture. So everyone, and like, these are like poor kids from the countryside who are in the industrial center in college. And so you got to think like they're like, what, like, we're really enthusiastic about like the culture of like the industrial working class and like a really, you know, this guy.
Yeah, totally.
We knew a guy in high school who this kind of reminds me of, the guy who he drove the VW bus. He used to
Yes,
race him.
I know
For
exactly who you're
yeah.
talking about. Yep.
And like it kind of like that's like the vibe I'm getting from this.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, so he's really interested in winning the support of the working class for an explicitly revolutionary socialist ideology. And the Ordine Nuovo, which is like a weekly newspaper, is meant to be like the organ through which this is going to fucking happen. It's a lot of veterans of like labor organizing regarded as kind of like dilettante cafe intellectualism. And Gramsci is convinced that the old bourgeois capitalism had been thrown into disarray by the war, and Fiat Agnelli, for instance, had been transformed from a popular captain of industry into a financial capitalist incapable of winning popular support among the working class. So like, and this is like kind of like before the war, Agnelli was kind of like a Henry Ford sort of character
Mhm.
in the sense that people were like, or like Elon Musk like 10 years ago or something,
Okay.
right? Where people were like, that guy's like an innovator. We fucking love that guy. Um, and like even like the like working class was like, whoa, we're gonna get like a Fiat Tipo and like drive to Croatia. That's foreshadowing, by the way.
Okay.
Um, and right, like, but then like after the war, people are like, oh, this guy is basically like he's like a financial guy. It's like Elon Musk now, right? So, in the history, early in the history of the magazine, Gramsci writes, "Does there exist in Italy, as an institution of the working class, anything comparable to the Soviet over in Russia? Anything similar to it in character? Anything that will enable us to conclude that the Soviet is a universal institution, not merely a Russian one?" So, Madeline, what was the fucking thing that like replaced the trade unions in like advocating on behalf of the workers in the factories in Turin during the war?
In Turin, I mean, it has to be the thing you referenced in the beginning, like the little committees.
The internal commissions.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, in my head, I'm like the people's committees. No, that's the DPRK, but it functions probably pretty similarly.
Well, basically, they're just like these like informal organizations of workers that like spring up because people are like, man, the unions ain't doing nothing for us. Like, let's fucking like we're just gonna vote on like a guy or a few guys, like go talk to the bosses and be like, you can't make us work 75 hours a week. That's crazy.
Right.
Um, and so that becomes like the internal commissions, and they're like these intermediaries between the workers representative and like employer societal labor disputes. And Gramsci's like looking at the old unions and he's like, you guys suck, you're ossified, you're tools of the oppressors. And in June of 19, Ordine Nuovo starts arguing for a complete restructuring of the internal class structures of the factories in Turin, especially in coach building and metalworking, in favor of the internal commissions over like any sort of union organization. they started advocating this plan where the internal commissions would be elected not by the unions, but by members of each shop within the factory. And whether or not workers were members of the union, they would be eligible to vote for a commissar, so like a leader of like these internal commissions. And Gramsci's reasoning that it was that class relations had to be based in the process of production, quote, in the factory where the relations are those of oppressor and oppressed, of exploiter and exploited. So basically, the idea is like the fucking unions, they're not in the factories. Like those guys are, and like you see this like every time we've talked about union shit, like you kind of see this where it's like the union bureaucracy isn't in the factory. And so like they're more interested in preserving their own position than they are in like actually fucking like handling shit. And it's like obviously not always the case. Obviously, fuck yeah, unions, but like, right, like this is what's happening in the early 20th century where people are like, man, these unions just really like being in power. Um, and so the internal commissions is the thing that Gramsci sees is going to replace the unions as like functioning as like grassroots labor agitation or like labor militancy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the workshop commissar's function was to be to maintain discipline among workers, to negotiate complaints and wage agreements, to ensure concerted efforts in the event of a strike, and perhaps most importantly, to study and understand the technical methods of production within the factory. So this is why I brought up Frederick Taylor early. Gramsci's like a fucking Taylorist, right?
And this makes you like Taylor more.
Well, no, it's just like it makes me like understand, like, right, like because again, like whenever Gramsci's talking about organic intellectuals, people think it means Althusser or some shit, and
Right.
it's like no, he's like, I want to know how like the fucking machine that makes the car work, and I want to like have access to like the like accounting books that makes the factory run, and those are the organic intellectuals.
Yes.
Right. Like, and like if like the working class has control of that shit, as well as like the like, your Althusser shit, or I get not I fuck Althusser, your Raymond Williams ass cultural shit. Um, like you like that creates like a good working class movement. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So in advocating for the Workers' Council, he writes that such a system of workers' democracy integrated with corresponding peasants' organizations would give the masses a permanent structure and discipline. It would be a magnificent school of political and administrative experience and would involve the masses down to the last man, accustoming them to tenacity and perseverance and to thinking of themselves as an army in the field in which strict cohesion is necessary if it's not to be destroyed and reduced to slavery. So basically, he's like, if this is going to be like an actual militant movement, like the internal commissions are going to be like a really necessary way of like training people to understand how like industrial production fucking works. Uh, and just to make this clear, academics usually treat Gramsci's understanding of cultural hegemony as a place where organic intellectuals articulate critiques of capitalism, and like they write sort of endless and endlessly abstract excursus. He's interested in like the working class actually learning autonomously how to understand themselves as industrial workers.
Right.
So the PSI, meanwhile, is like this necessary accompaniment to the workers' councils. And at this point, like Gramsci's like, yes, we need the fucking PSI because we need to have like a political organ of the revolution as well as an economic one. And it serves as the principal agent through which workers would advocate for the reformation or destruction of the state. He's pretty aware that the Socialist Party as an institution is rooted in bourgeois democratic norms and necessarily hold bourgeois society as sacrosanct. So basically, his view is like, we need the Socialist Party to do politics, but like, fuck the Socialist Party. Um, in 1919, there's this increased agitation at the Fiat plants throughout Turin on behalf of the Factory Council movement. And, and so the Factory Council movement is what the Ordine Nuovo starts calling the internal commissions because they want to reform the internal commissions as factory councils, which basically run the factories.
Got it.
And the tensions concern are between reformists and maximalists within the socialist movement. so the reformists are people who are like, we want to like do electoral politics. And the maximalists are like, the revolution's coming, guys. I'm just gonna say now, both sides of this coin are stupid. Uh, right, like don't be like, I love the maximalists because they want a revolution because they don't know how to do it. Um, the disagreement turns over Armando Borghi of the U. Wait, hold on. Actually, can you do USI?
USI, Unione Sindacale Italiana. The
So
syndicate.
yeah, the syndicalists play like a huge fucking role in this, and a lot of the syndicalists become fascists. Just like if you're like a person who's like, wow, all of those anarchists, they're like fellow travelers. We love them. They become fascists. Uh,
Right.
real fucking fast.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I actually, I'm going to be on a fellow commies podcast soon, and we did actually a lot of talk about subculture and anarchism and how subculture breeds like conservatism and how anarchism is like a very right-wing ideology actually. And like I used to be an anarchist, and that's like why I kind of left anarchism because I'm like, oh, it's hyper individualistic, and you see how it's the gateway into super conservative right-wing ideas
oh,
actually.
I do remember when you had like a Chelsea cut and white laces on your Doc Martens. That was
Uh-huh.
crazy. That was like a crazy time.
That wasn't
You
me.
were the one who said like that first screwdriver is really good, but then you're like, you know what's
You're
also
gonna get me
cool?
super canceled, but
You know
laugh.
what's fucking also cool? Every other screwdriver record. Actually, you know what I do?
So
I actually
I was actually really into syndicalism, and I read a lot about syndicalism. I was an anarcho-communist syndicalist, you know.
no,
So
I'm just talking about when you were right wing, though.
that
When like
never
after
has
this,
happened. People are gonna believe you, David. You don't know how the internet works. You have
I
to
remember
prove
I
it.
remember you gave me a CD. That's how new it was of the
Why do you do this to me? This is like this one time, Lamson, my ex-boyfriend, and I watched this guy in this guy who was like a gardener in like an old fucked up beat up gardening truck knock over the most douchebag looking motorcycle we'd ever seen in our life while trying to parallel park to do his gardening job.
Oh, I remember this. This was in front of your apartment in K-Town.
Yes, and the guy saw me and Lamson see him, and Lamson and I both like very conspicuously put our hands in front of our faces and turned our heads to be like we didn't see anything, like just carry on. So then months later, this guy gets into our elevator in the building that we live in, and he has a bright yellow fucking motorcycle helmet. And I clock it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is probably the guy whose motorcycle that was, but I don't say anything. And Lamson instantly turns to me and goes, do you remember when you were driving and you knocked over that guy's motorcycle? And I'm like, why would you say this? And the guy turns around, he's like, yo, that was you. That was my bike. And I was like, no, my boyfriend is just making the stupidest joke on the planet. This was not me. And I don't know why he's done this. This is you right now. You don't know
This
what you're doing. You're making a weird joke that I was somehow a neo-Nazi. The internet's not going to think it's a joke, David. They're going to be like, "That's a
Madeline believes in
motorcycle
Lace
helmet."
code, is all I'm saying. Madeline believes in Lace code.
Oh my God. Yeah. So now you don't even know what you've done. Now the internet is going to think I was actually a right-wing Nazi punk
Yeah,
because
I remember
they
you
want to
at the shows at hardcore. Like, okay, actually, this is real talk. Whenever you talk about Fresno hardcore, like, I'm like, I don't like you make it sound like it was not the stupidest, lamest thing in the world.
I
Uh,
don't think I don't know, like you, because you never went to the actual punk shows that we had.
no, no, yeah, but it's like, right, like
The
like
hardcore
hardcore.
shows were stupid. I think you're remembering this wrong. I made fun of them all constantly. I would
No,
make
but
fun of
like
them
when
for
you talk about
hardcore
it now, you're like,
dancing.
yeah, there was like a cool hardcore set, and I'm like, that was not cool. It was
I
really
think
lame.
it was good that there was a scene. There was a cool, it was a scene. It was a scene for sure. There was a lot of live music. The kids were into it, but they were all, I talk about this often. All of those kids who put on the hardcore shows were all from North Fresno, north of Shaw, came from good families. That's I always joke about that. Like I didn't even like the hardcore scene that much when I got into it, and I would make fun of people for it. Like actually a lot. Like I would be like the punk like kid, like mocking everybody, be like, "Oh, you're gonna fucking
Oh
hardcore."
yeah, that was you, and like the white laces with the Chelsea cut,
Oh my
like
God. Oh my
the
God.
bomber
The
jacket.
revisionist history on two counts. 2 counts of revisionist history.
And you were just like you were out there and you were shouting like oi oi oi, but like not in like a cool way. Like you weren't shouting oi govna. You were like I actually like the problem is like I've heard that Screwdriver album, like the first one. It's fine.
I
It's like
have never listened to any of this.
I feel like I don't know how to put this, but like you're like you have not been around punks enough if like some like drunk shithead has not been like that first Screwdriver album before that because
I
punks
mean,
like to
I've definitely heard people say this before. I
like
have. I have.
loved like
Not my friends, but you know.
I it's like the fucking GG Allen like punks like to piss people off, right?
Exactly. Trolls. Punks are trolls.
Yeah.
Bring trolling back to punk 2025.
So basically, like the syndicalists, the USI, they're like they at one point meet in like Paris, and they're like, "Hey, man, like, what if we had like a united revolutionary front composed of representatives from the PSI, the CGL, as well as the USI? That's the fucking like syndicalist shit." As well as the Railwaymen's Union, and some members of the PSI are actually in favor of this proposal, but eventually kind of falls apart. At the time, like the government's kind of like looking at all of this shit happening and all of this like sort of like incipient militancy, and they're also kind of like they're watching the PSI's leader, this guy Sarati, and like the Minister of the Interior writes a memo in which he says Sarati believes that society is now ripe for transformation, but this can only come about through a revolt, an organized revolt, which is based on and has roots among the middle strata of the bourgeoisie, and especially in the barracks. According to him, revolutionary tendencies are fairly widespread in Italy, but they are not well organized, and hence the main task is to embark on the work of organization so as to be a disciplined force at the decisive moment. So this kind of sums up Sarati, which is like, who's going to lead the communist revolution? Madeline.
Who?
The bourgeoisie.
What? No, this is what he's saying by this?
Yeah, this is like so the minister, like the Italian minister of interior is like, who's gonna lead is like sort of like he's like spying on Sarati, the head of PSI, and he's like, man, this Sarati guy, he's like the bourgeoisie and the military are going to lead the communist
This is
revolution,
wild. Okay.
which like I
Okay.
think right, like I think like the minister of the interior is onto something and that like that's what Sarati believes, but that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, that's wild.
So essentially, he thought like Sarati thinks the working class is just too disorganized to stage a revolution. And at the end of June 1919, there are like all like more food riots as is in June, and food prices had risen to a retail index price of 287.5, or from a retail index price of 287.5 to 344.9. I do not know how to understand statistics other than that's like a fucking big jump in number.
Yeah, big number jump for sure.
So food got more expensive.
Yeah.
Syndicalists in La Spezia and Forli start rioting, followed by socialist strongholds in the north. Towns began establishing quote unquote Soviets in order to manage the distribution of food, which they're like just like lifting from stores while rioting. Uh, Not wishing to ally themselves with the USI, members of the PSI don't take a leading role in the food riots or the incipient Soviets. And so when a general strike is called the next year in solidarity with the revolution in Russia, the PSI has no coherent platform. Oh, this is uh, like at the start of the Third International's first conference, like workers throughout Turin started like waving banners, shout like doing like Viva Lenin kind of shit. Like workers are into this shit.
Yeah.
So fitful attempts are made to organize resistance within the military. But here's the fucking thing, and I think about this because I've actually been thinking a lot about Trotsky's How the Revolution Armed Itself. Because like so I don't know, Madeline, do you want to sum up that essay?
Um, Trotsky's. Let me look up which one it is.
It's called How the Revolution Armed Itself.
Let me check out what he's talking about here. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. So Let me see. This is from 1918, right? So pretty recent, pretty fresh.
Yeah. And Trotsky, just like let it be said, one of the principal organizers of the Bolshevik Party within the like in the early years.
Right. So his whole thing he's talking about here basically is about militarization. He's like, before the revolution, we had armed forces basically fight, like ready to fight on our behalf. After the revolution, they remained and they were born out of basically the war, right? Like the
Yeah,
workers
and it
were
was like
armed because of
organizing
the war.
among the military, right? Like they
Right.
were
And this
organizing the military.
this is one of the things we know about, Lenin, right? Before he came to power, is that he gave this now famous speech to the people in the military and was like, do not turn your guns on fellow workers from other countries, like turn your guns on the ruling class who is making you fight this war. And that's part of the way that they really like radicalized, right? The military, the armed forces, and that is also why he got banished. And then before this, he was banished, and then the Germans snuck him back into the country, and then he gave this speech, and it really demotivated the working class from fighting for the czar's war, basically the rich's war. So that's kind of what Trotsky's talking about in this. He's
Yeah.
like, we were armed. We were armed from the war. The militarized workers basically were radicalized from the war. So there wasn't like this long transition period to get us there to arms. Like
So
they had arms, they were ready.
the real takeaway is that in like Russia prior to 1917, various socialist factions, not just the Bolsheviks, were like up in the military talking to guys in the military, being like, what the like,
Right.
right. In Italy, the situation was like really different, and it was like it's kind of like more similar to America, where people were just like, if you're kind of left wing, you're like, I'm a pacifist. Like I don't I don't fuck with the military. I don't fuck
Right.
with people in the military. So there's this like basically anti-militant sentiment among the working class, which meant that any hope of creating an armed wing of the Socialist Party basically collapsed before it got off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
In the midst of this, the party held a congress in which they shifted focus to electoral victory because they're like the revolution's not coming, and they actually got 156 of the 506 seats of the National Chamber of Deputies. The downside was that the PSI was more or less sidelined within the factory council movement. And at a meeting of the local PSI in Turin, Gramsci began advocating for the Factory Council program, and the meeting passed a resolution condemning the reformist tendencies of national leadership and declared that the local branch would begin practical communist organizing among the workers of Turin. Uh, Umberto Terracini, the local socialist and journalist, reported that, quote, the entire proletariat in the city became enthusiastic and heated discussion took place in meetings, assemblies, and groups. So up in Turin, they're like, man, the national leadership of this party sucks. However, we can start organizing factory councils within the factories. So that's what's good. We good so far?
Yeah, yeah.
At the same time, leaders of the Federazione Italiani Operai Metallurgici. Did I say that right?
I don't know.
The metal workers union.
why
The
why would I say the metal workers in Italy?
Wait, hold on. It's in the thing. I think it's in the thing.
Metallurgici. I don't know. That's a hard one.
Yeah, we're leading.
Creazioni Italiani Apparai Metallurgici.
Uh,
Oh, metallurgici, probably.
that's a fun. The metallurgy.
Metallurgici.
That's a
Metallurgici.
fucking crazy word.
I think it's metallurgici.
Okay, I don't know.
Okay, it's a wild one. That's a hard one.
So
That's a real hard one.
they're leading a 20,000 person strike in nearby Lombardy to the east of Piedmont, where Turin is. And at issue is basically securing pay scale that had been secured for Piedmont workers a year earlier. Obviously, the absence of union leaders during the strike led the workers there to advocate in favor of factory council models. And at the Piedmont Fiat, they're running at full capacity, but Agnelli's pursuing basically a Fordist model. 20,000 vehicles were ordered in the first half of 1920. And I know like these days, like people produce crazy amounts of vehicles at like Ford factories or whatever,
Yeah.
but this is like, right. 1910 is like the Model T, model whatever, like the like first mass-produced automobile. So we're 10 years on for that. So 20,000 vehicles in a year is like a huge number. And Agnelli's pursuing a policy of really high investment and high wages for his workers in order to secure orderly production. The downside of the Fordist model is that the workers ceded all control over the shop floor in exchange for high wages. And organizers realized the utility of the factory council movement really quickly in agitating for workers. So this is a lot like some things that we've talked about in like the American labor movement, where the issue isn't so much wages, it's control of the shop floor,
Mm,
right? And I feel like you've heard me say those words in roughly that order
right.
before. Uh, at the Brevetti Fiat Works, an August 31st meeting to elect commissars, all but three of 2,000 workers voted, and throughout September, almost the entire metalworking industry of Piedmont and op, Lombard. The other
Lombardi.
day, wait, say it.
I would say Lombardi, but I don't know if that's right.
The other day, the word Cambodia fell out of my head.
Oh, really?
Like, I don't know if this ever happens to you. When,
Okay.
like, I was just like, because I was like, I went to go see this like art exhibit by this artist in Chile who had to flee the Cambodian genocide. Um, and then I was like describing it later, and I kept saying Cambodia, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. That sounds wrong. What? And it was like my brain forgot the word Cambodia. Does
Oh,
this
that makes
happen to you?
sense. Not with Cambodia specifically, but with things for sure.
Where like, and then it's like it doesn't sound right, and like to this day, every time I say it, and like Khmer Rouge, that sounds crazy.
It does a little. Yeah, I can see that.
Um, but in any case, so in an address to the newly elected commissars of the factory councils, Gramsci told them that the working masses must take adequate measures to acquire complete self-government, and the first step along this road consists in disciplining themselves inside the workshop in the strictest possible yet autonomous, spontaneous, and unconstricted manner. So the basic, like Gramsci is really on this, like, you guys have to, like, if you guys are going to like do the communist thing, you have to be like really good at like running a factory. Uh,
Right. Which I
right?
don't disagree with them.
Like he's like, and like again, this is like everyone when they talk about Gramsci, they're like, okay, like hegemon, like cultural Marxism, all of the stuff, like like academy shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like what he was about was like actually you got to be really on your shit if you're going to be a communist.
Right.
You have to be actually in the workplace. You can't be in like I mean, I guess college is a workplace, but um,
Right. But you can't, it's not an academic pursuit.
yeah. Uh, and so he told the commissars that they will be the workers, quote, inflexible and tenacious defenders and guardians. And since you, the commissars, yourself will be living continuously on the job in the midst of the workers, you will be in a position to know what modification should be made in the rules from time to time as a result of technological progress or improved consciousness and capacity of the workers themselves. So basically, Graham, she's like, not only are you gonna like teach the like be like good communists and like learn and like you might improve industrial production. And I don't like mean to go on and on about this, but like this is not fucking Althusser. Now I've lost that word.
Right.
Um so almost immediately conflict starts arriving arising between the commissars and the local chamber of labor, which is like the CGL people, which was but it's a body meant to unite all the trade unions. And basically what happened, okay, this is my favorite part of this fucking thing.
Okay.
So there's this guy, and his name is actually you're gonna say it better than me. Giovanni D'Annunzio.
Denuncio.
D'Annunzio. There we go.
Yeah. Well, oh, yeah. Oh, D'Annunzio. That makes sense.
D apostrophe A
Yeah,
N
yeah.
N. Yeah, yeah.
Giovanni D'Annunzio.
Yeah. So he's like the Italian, like if like Charles Lindbergh were Italian and also a poet.
Wait, Lindbergh. Who's Charles Lindbergh?
What do you not know? He was like the guy who was like he was like a famous aviator. I think he flew over the
Was he
Atlantic.
the blimp guy?
No, he was like he flew over the Atlantic first. He so first solo flight over the Atlantic or whatever.
Who
But
would know who this guy is? Charles
everyone knows who
Lindbergh?
fucking Charles Lindbergh
Nobody
is. The
knows
shit
who
that you
Charles
know and
Lindbergh is.
the shit you know and don't know is bananas.
Who nobody knows who this man is, David.
Everybody knows who fucking Charles Lindbergh is, and everybody
They
knows
do
because
not.
everybody knows that his baby was kidnapped and maybe replaced by another baby.
That's
And
the Lindbergh baby. You said this wasn't the Lindbergh baby.
this is no, that's this guy, the Lindbergh
Oh,
baby. I
okay.
said
I
no,
said the blimp. There's something about a blimp.
that's not no blimps are involved.
I'm
But
pretty sure a blimp is involved.
okay, I don't know about this. I feel like
I
this is
remember
like,
the Lindbergh baby.
but he was
Okay,
also
maybe there's no blimp involved. I don't know where I got the blimp from. Okay, my bad. I did think a blimp was involved in this kidnapping somehow, and that might be incorrect. All right.
yeah, but right, like Charles. So like, and he was like also like pals with Hitler at one point.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. All right.
you know, a storied life. But so Giovanni D'Annunzio was like a famous Italian aviator. It was like kind of a Charles and like also like an extreme nationalist. So uh D'Annunzio
Yeah.
stole a bunch of Italian army vehicles and took 20,000 former, or I'm sorry, 2,000 uh, former Italian military officials and led them in a Fiat Tipo. Madeline, look up what a Fiat Tipo looks like. It's worth
Okay.
it. It's because maybe post it on the Patreon or something.
They make a new one actually, and it looks
Okay,
quite
look at the 1919 Fiat Tipo.
1990. Oh, okay. Yes, it looks like
Huge.
what you would think of as an old-timey car looking like.
But it's
If you're
tiny,
like, what's a car look like in 1919? This is what you're picturing, like a Bonnie and Clyde ass car.
but it's small. It's smaller than you think.
How
Uh
small is it?
uh
Scale, okay. Fiat Tipo 1919 scale. I'm not
yeah.
seeing the size. How small can this thing be? I don't get it.
There is a very funny Jay Leno car episode where he drives around in a Fiat Tipo and it's very small. Like his knees. He's a big guy. It's a small car. It's a
Okay.
classic situation.
Yeah, got it, got it,
Um,
got it. Okay.
but so D'Annunzio in its Fiat Tipo leads 2,000 former Italian military people to Fiume in modern day Croatia and invades Fiume, which is a port city in Croatia.
Oh God, they do try to get their Croatia. Okay.
Yeah, and so he's like, D'Annunzio's not in the fucking military. He's just like, me and 2,000 guys, we're just gonna fucking take this shit. And they
Wow.
kind of do. For like
Okay.
a little bit. So D'Annunzio's pissed that the war's ended. Like he's like into the war. It like and Italians die without Italy receiving what he thought was justly theirs, i.e. Croatia. Uh, it, in 1919, before he invades Fiume, he declares, not only has our war not ended, it has now reached its climax. So he invades Croatia and then just like camps out in this like port city and is like, this is ours now. And like obviously like the Italian government's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, because like this has like mass popular support among like the far right nationalists in Italy who are like, fuck yeah, we love war, we love dying. Like Mussolini's writing about this and he's like, this rocks, oh my God. Italy sends the Navy to try to get D'Annunzio out, and then like the Navy just like camps out in the port, and then when all of the officers for the Navy have off hours, they go party with him. Um, it's fucking so eventually like the Italian army has to like come and get the fucker out of there. Uh, and he gets out by Christmas time. And Mussolini's like learning that like panache and style is really important to a fascist coup. You actually do need more than 2,000 guys. uh is also, I just gotta say, I've been writing for like a future episode about Boris Savinkov, who's like a Russian terrorist leader from about the same time. And both Boris and D'Annunzio are bald guys who twirl their mustaches. And I think if you're like a cop in the early 1900s, you should just like have arrested any guy with that combination.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty suspicious.
I'm also gonna say if you're like a guy now who has that, like you as like a cop should also arrest you. Um,
Probably. I think, yeah, yeah. If you're twirling your mustache, you're up to no
and
good.
with like bald,
Bald and twirling mustache, you might as well be wearing suspenders.
yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Uh,
It's an
so
old-timey villain thing.
so basically, like some people, right? Like the labor movement, which is like broadly anti-war, is like pissed about the Denuncio stuff. Like they're like protesting Denuncio, and like the PSI doesn't know how to respond because like right-wing people are really into Denuncio, and then like the left wing is like fuck this guy, and so like like the left wing starts organizing protests. The Chamber of Labor accedes to a ban on mass meetings from like the city of Turin. So the city of Turin's like, dude, you guys can't like protest this guy. And like the Chamber of Labor, which is run by the CGL, is like, cool, like no more mass meetings, no more protests. And the commissars of the factory councils that had been organized the previous year are like, well, fuck that. Like, we're going to protest anyway. So they're basically directly usurping authority from the local trade union organizations. And it's all over this fucking guy who just decided to invade Croatia.
This makes sense.
Uh, so a meeting of the national union organizations in Florence in November attempts to find a way to negotiate between sort of the left-wing factory council groups and like the larger union organization. But their policy ends up being this quote, and this is a long quote, so forgive me. The union organization must have entire responsibility for the movement and activity of the class, both within and outside the factory, and it is the duty of the union members to fortify it and increase its authority both toward the industrialists and toward the non-union masses. We decide to allow the experiment of factory councils, but only in so far as they function. Their functions are regarded as the continuation of the work of the internal commissions and are coordinated with those of the union on whose principles they must be based. So basically, the union's like, look, we let you guys have your little factory commissions, but only if you follow our rules. So factory councils aren't going to be restricted by union leadership, and soon they start expanding beyond metal work into the Fiat factories to coach builders and auto body workers. Madeline, where are we at a time?
We are at around an hour and a half. If you think
Okay.
it's a good place to stop, we could stop and pick up part two next week.
Uh, yeah, why don't we go another 10 minutes? Let's say that.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. Got a good stopping point?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
In December of 1919, a debate at the Turin Chamber of Labor over whether or not non-union members should be allowed to vote for commissars leads to the union's defeat. They wanted to restrict voting, obviously, to union members.
Right.
So, just do you want to like summarize what's going on so far, or like,
Yeah, let's do a little recap. So we've
yeah,
got these councils that have been created, workers' councils, if you will. I'm
Mhm.
sure that we might talk about Tony Pancake,
Uh,
Antonio Danakoic. Is
you
he
can
coming
explain
up?
Tony Pancake to me. I don't know what the fuck
Okay,
that.
Tony Pancake is a famous council communist. I'm pretty sure he's Italian.
Okay.
Not at the factories, these workers' councils basically going on factory councils, and they are protesting Denuncio, but Denuncio, super right wing guy, kind of popular in Italy. Italy famously kind of liking some right wing shit, right?
Yep.
So the Chamber of Labor is like, okay, no mass meetings. You guys got to stop because everybody's getting really, really mad. And then all of the commissars who are parts of the factory councils, right? They're the ones that get
Yeah.
together and they're like, what are we going to do about the situation? Because we don't like this Denuncio guy and they're trying to control what we can do. So this means that the trade union people are like, what are you guys doing over there? We the trade union people kind of like the Denuncio guy. You guys can't be going off on your own here, right? And fighting against our Denuncio guy. And this kind of, all of a sudden we see the situation that had kind of been tenuous maybe under the surface, this huge conflict start to arise between the pretty moderate labor union people and
Mhm.
the more socialist, I would say workers oriented factory councils.
Yeah, so I want to be clear, like the CGL isn't like pro denuncio so much as they are like we would rather not be forced to venture an opinion about this shit because like
Right,
we
because you said they were like, well, people really like him, so this is going to be conflict for us to get in the middle of.
yeah, like why do we have to have an opinion about this shit? Like, and you guys protesting is just forcing us to have an opinion about something that is none of our fucking business.
And this really
Right.
sounds a lot like situations we've dealt with in the United States, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, right, like I sort of like, right, it is one of those things where like you do kind of get the fucking, and like this will come up later when it comes to like arms manufacturing during like the strikes that break out the next year, where it's like the CGL is like, dude, if our job is to secure full employment, better wages, and better benefits and better working conditions, who gives a shit if we're manufacturing guns to go fight the Bolsheviks or if we're manufacturing cars? And like the actual people in the factory are like, we would rather not build guns to go fight the Bolsheviks. We kind of like the Bolsheviks.
Right.
So they're like the CGL is like because they are a trade union organization, they're like, why the fuck are you guys getting making this political? Like that's their standpoint.
Right.
So in theory, the commissars at the factory are supposed to act like sort of like Marxist Taylorites, right? In practice, it's not like the owners over at Fiat were like stoked, right? To be like, hey, Tony from Auto Body says that he can manage a factory better than us, and we're gonna let him. And so they're like, obviously, like, no, you can't have our trade secrets. No, you can't look at our finances. But the councils are really successful in negotiating pay disputes. Beginning in 1920, workers' councils extend to 14 of the city's chemical factories, and textile manufacturers and printers are beginning to organize themselves as well. In addition to pay negotiations, workers' council's main responsibility was organizing demonstrations and strikes. So basically, they're taking over all the shit the unions used to do.
Right.
Uh, in November of 1919, employers in Turin docked a quarter's pay to those workers who had commemorated the Russian Revolution.
Oh my God, Hetty. Hetty.
Which is like, you got. I just love the idea of like, what's his name? Like Agnelli or whatever at Fiat being like, this Lenin motherfucker. Like, everyone's like walking around with this goddamn picture. We're gonna take the damn if they want to be communists so bad, I'll show them communism.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All the metal workers in Turin went on a week-long strike ordered by the councils, importantly not the unions. And the problem facing the workers' councils at this point is that they're limited basically to Turin. Gramsci and others at Ordine Nuovo are attempting some manner of rapprochement with the PSI and like attempting to get the PSI to like get into it. Like they're like, we know you're like the political arm of the Socialist Party. But the PSI is like any attempt to strengthen the council movement would undermine the power of the trade unions, which the PSI regards as the only organ for workers' rights. So there's one attempt to form something called a Central Commission of Workers' Control, which is a coordinating arm between the PSI and the factory councils. The issue of abstentionism over union membership is left unresolved, and Gramsci later came to regret the split with the PSI, stating, out of fear of being called Aravists or being accused of career mindedness, we failed to set up a proper faction and did not seek to organize one throughout Italy. We were not willing to make the factory council movement at Turin an independent center of leadership, which might have exercised immense influence over the party. Um, on February 19th, the Metallurgical Federation of the CGL signs an agreement for an 8-hour workday. And it has to be said, meanwhile, anarchists and syndicalists play a large role in the factory council movement. They're usually considered like basically like the like most committed militant faction of the working class at this point, and syndicalists tended to be the best equipped to organize so-called unskilled workers in areas like Liguria and Marche, where it's like largely textile manufacturing, so it's like a lot of women.
Yeah, I mean, this
Uh,
is also what I still say in defense of anarchism from my time as an anarchist. The anarcho-syndicalists in northern Italy did a lot of tangible material stuff.
and then became fascists.
Before,
Uh,
yeah, and then apparently they capitulated to fascism.
Capitulated is like not strong, like literally became fascists.
Did they
Like,
actually just become
yeah,
fascists?
like a bunch of them just like
Okay.
straight up were like, yeah, man. Because like, remember like that Mussolini was like fascism was like meant to be like, oh my God, we're kind of like all in this together, and like we're gonna use like nationalism to like bind everyone together, which means that it can be like kind of a working class thing. Like, which is bullshit, right? Like fascism is
Yeah,
the ideology of like capitalism under crisis, yada yada yada. We all fucking know
right. I mean,
the whole
even
thing.
the corporatism thing and the corporate and the
Yeah, but like it's like the idea is like you're gonna get your fucking paycheck, you're gonna get yours, and you're going to get your fucking Italian pride back, right?
right,
That you lost
right,
during the war because you didn't get Croatia.
right,
Uh
right.
so like they're meeting in like the syndicalists are meeting in Paris and they're coordinating a general strike in the Lombardy region under the auspices of the this is the USI Madeline.
Oh, the USI. I'm back on. Hold on. I gotta
Yeah,
pull
yeah.
it up.
You got a break.
I did. I wasn't looking at my cheat sheet. Unione Sindacale Italiana.
No, this is the Unione Italiana del Lavoro.
You said USI.
USI. Oh, okay, I got that wrong. No, well, it is that. That's that one. It's the so this is like a small breakout syndicalist union that's also paradoxically really interventionist and pro-war and in favor of the Denuncio Fiume affair, which is
Got it.
why they all become fucking fascists.
Okay.
So their leader, Alcest Danvers, eventually comes to favor Mussolini. More on him probably in the next week's episode. On July 20th, a small strike that had started a month earlier at the Forlì plant extends to La Spezia, Romagna, and Emilia. Strikes soon pop up in Rome, Naples, and Italy. As the strike spread, members of the USI meet with members of the PSI. The meetings fall apart pretty quickly over the desire of the socialist factions to limit the strikes, and the member of the USI actually at this point consider assassinating socialist leaders.
Wow.
I think that's a good place to stop. What do you
Okay.
think?
I think that's pretty good. So
Want to go? We're hour 40 minutes.
yeah, we're around. I mean, yeah, we're almost at 2 hours here. I think that's pretty good because we're gonna pick up next week with the Piedmont General Strike, right, in 1920.
Yeah, and like the next week we're gonna talk about uh how the Third International reacted to it, what Trotsky and Lenin thought of what the fuck was going on, um, and the factory and the occupation of the factories in September, and the fallout with Mussolini and a right-wing reaction.
Okay. All right. I think it's going to be good. I think it's really interesting so far. This is again, all of my knowledge about Italy comes from that like kind of anarcho-syndicalist stuff, but it's very like topical and it's not really like I mean topical not like how we use topical. It's very like a single topic, like this anarcho-syndicalist guy, this blah 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 blah. So this has been like really informative for me because it's filling in a lot of gaps in my knowledge.
I mean, I think it's also right. Like, I think most people have, like, at the very least, a vague understanding of the ways in which, in the post World War One era, there was like this idea that like revolution was just around the fucking corner, right? Like, there were like these like very short-lived Soviets in Hungary and Slovakia, and like a lot of revolutionary activity in Germany and I like Italy is one that you sort of like people are like Italy and they kind of like gesture at it, but they never actually fucking say what happened. And then on the other side, like if you're an academic, like you like learn about Gramsci and he's this kind of like gnomic aphoristic guy. whose prison notebooks like don't make a lot of sense and you need some guy to like fucking interpret them for you. But it's like he literally didn't have any books, so he couldn't quote anything. And he was in prison, so he had to censor everything.
Right.
But he was actually like a member of like he was like an organizer in good standing with like the Factory Council movement and like Ordine Nuovo is where the Factory Council movement had its origins.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I mean, I think this stuff is I think it's really good. It does bridge the gap for sure.
Yeah. All right. Uh shall I think are we planning on recording tomorrow night as well?
Yeah, we're gonna record the second part of this episode tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna record a Patreon episode as well.
Yeah, so we got a lot of content going on. We did get some stuff up on Patreon in the month of March.
One, yes.
We did. We have life's been lifing. We've been a little behind. We're gonna get back on top of our shit. We have been working in conjunction with Means TV. We recorded a sample video episode with them, and we're kind of still in communication with them to see how it's gonna play out. So thank you all for sitting tight with us while we work on that with them. I've already forgotten what the episode was about that we recorded with them.
It was about protests in Israel. Oh, wait, fuck. No, that was the Patreon episode.
Yeah, what did we even do with Means TV? It wasn't AFRICOM because we're gonna work on some
No, no, no.
upcoming fall.
Who fucking knows?
Who knows? It's
Um,
gonna be a surprise for us when it drops because we totally forgot what it was.
I mean, as someone who can't stand the sound of my own voice, I will never hear it, so I'll never know.
That
Uh,
is awesome. But well, I'm sure whatever it was super interesting, and it's gonna be a fun
it,
surprise when we hear it
oh,
again.
I do remember that my cell phone went off twice.
Yeah, I remember that too. And then I had to show you how to put your phone on silent because you and I are 38 in very different ways, I'm realizing.
I feel like that. Did you insult me?
I mean, I just think we're a different 38. Like the other night, I was like, do you want to come see New Partners like play music tonight? They're going on at 2. And you were like, 2 a.m. I would never deign to go see someone set at 2 a.m. I
Okay,
will
okay.
be
I said
in
it
bed.
in that voice. I said,
I
no,
will be asleep,
I said, I'm sorry. I'm going to an art opening and then I'm going to sleep.
comma, because I am
I'm
an adult.
38.
Yeah, that's what you said to me. Yeah, I'm an
I'm
adult. I'm
38
38.
years old.
I
I'm
am
not
also
trying to
38 years
shame
old,
you,
and
but I am kind of like,
I was standing in a sketchy warehouse until 4 a.m. watching techno. So we are 38 in different ways, I guess.
and I was, first of all, I'm writing a review of the fucking thing, so I had to go to the fucking opening.
That's fine. Nobody said you couldn't do
Um,
the thing. You could have come to this afterwards. You could have done both.
I was pulling a skinhead look. I think that probably wouldn't have been welcome.
It would have been great. You know what was cool? When I went there, everybody at this show in particular, a lot of them used to go to like the Tromaville backyard shows and stuff. They all just like
Oh
moved,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they were all cool. And some people were like, "Oh my God, I remember you." And I was like, "Oh my God, hey." Yeah, so I think the general consensus is just that people were like, honestly, this actually ties back to the podcast episode I recorded with Pokepreet. If you're listening, you know who Pokepreet is on social
Record.
media. We're still recording, by the way. Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about conservatism and counterculture, and a lot of the old punks were just like, this scene's getting so fucked and weird that they just like all moved over to like techno and rave shit now, which I'm like,
This
honestly,
is
blur vibes all around.
I have been saying, okay, so this happens every fucking generation. Like, okay, so what happens? The guys in bands, right?
Yeah,
They're like, I love playing guitar. That rocks. I'm gonna get like a guitar pedal. I know that we're still recording, and that is totally fine.
that's fine. Let's
This,
keep it going. Keep it going.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna get a guitar pedal. Wow, now I have like 5 guitar pedals. Maybe I'm just into the guitar pedals. I don't want the guitar so much. Now I just have a bunch of guitar pedals. I'm gonna make music. I'm gonna make noise music. You know, it's kind of like noise music, but like with a beat.
Yeah, that is the process. I did see a girl do an entire noise set at one of these shows just with pedals, just with guitar pedals. So
Yeah, no, this is the
this
fucking
very
like
much is the thing. I mean, it's like the LCD sound system song. Remember from when we were in high school or whatever? I heard you and your band sold your guitars and bought synthesizers. I heard you and your band sold your synthesizers and bought guitars.
this happened like this had like and I remember back when I was an undergrad, there was a guy, his name was Guy.
Okay,
Um
yeah.
no, I didn't just acquire a stutter for a second. Um but and I remember one day like going over and he'd been in like a cool hardcore band and it was like not like what you say is hard like good, like it's a good hardcore like good band sound Poison Idea, not your
Sorry, I
like
only listen to bad hardcore. The only
not
acceptable
hard
hardcore is bad hardcore to me. I don't make the rules.
not cargo short
I didn't
bullshit.
listen to cargo short hardcore. I listened to swoopy hair, tight jeans, white belt hardcore.
That is a breed of cargo short. Those the
That
same.
is not the same breed. That is a very different breed.
It comes from the same place.
It
Too
does
many
not.
great
Mine is
friends.
arguably more embarrassing to like, and I wear that as a point of pride. I recall someone taking me to see the Blood Brothers last year.
I did that, but that was like a form of self-abnegation for me.
Yeah, I remember. You wouldn't stop talking about it.
What's that?
You wouldn't stop talking about it. You were like, see, I can't be pretentious. Look where I am. Look where I am. At 38, I'm at a Blood Brothers show. How can I be pretentious here? It's a Blood Brothers show.
Well,
I'm
I like okay, here's my thing. I like when the music is I like if okay, so you know how in Poison Idea the whole thing is like we're really fat and we love drugs and alcohol?
I mean, no, I don't remember Poison Idea. Oh, I'm looking at them. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's very punk of them. I like that.
Um I
Portland. They're from Portland, of course. Okay.
and like they did the EP called Ian Mackay where they had one of the band members spread his ass cheeks. And then the cover is the spread ass cheeks with Ian Mackay's name over the anus.
That's pretty cool. That's funny. I think
I
that's
like this is the vibe. I
we
don't
need to bring back trolling in counterculture.
like
You
it
can't troll anymore because of woke.
it's I mean look, I'm just gonna say the third track off of that Ian Mackay EP, Couldn't Get Away with It Now, one of the best fucking punk songs of all time.
Wait, are you actually doing it because of woke? Why couldn't you get away with it now?
Look at the
What
third track and
what is it?
no, no, I'm just
It's
I
not
like
get loaded and fuck, is it? Is
no, no. I
that
mean that's a great song. I'm just saying like right, I think like you couldn't like which is fine, but it's like being funny.
Huh. I don't know.
I
I don't
like
know what the song is, so we got to figure it out.
it's
We're
fine.
gonna see. Are we canceling David this episode, guys? You let me know
I
in
think it's
the
a bad. I think
Spotify
it's a bad.
comments.
I think it's good that we couldn't get away with it, but I like the naivety when I listen to it of a
Okay, good save.
time.
Good save. Good save. You're
It's like
definitely
when you look at a George Carlin set or something, and you're like, a lot of this shit is a little fucking weird, but I like that it existed at the time, and I understand it for what it was.
the spirit of rebellion is different in every generation. That'll
I
tell you.
just like to like I like a Gigi Allen moment.
There's some
I
GG
like
stuff that entertains me as well,
I
unfortunately.
like the when he went to the Fillmore and he climbed up into the balconies covered in his own shit and tried to hug people.
That's
I
funny.
find that very funny.
I find that very, very funny too. You know something I really liked about Steve Albini, RIP. I like that
He
Steve
changed over time.
Albini, huh?
He changed over time.
I like that Steve Albini was an edge lord, and then as he got older, he realized that nobody else was joking, and he was like, "Oh, what the fuck? You guys are being serious about this shit? You're like bad people. I thought we were all doing a bit." And then he had to come forward and be like, "For the record, I was doing a bit, and I thought they all were too. I am actually really fucking confused, and this is not cool." And nobody
Okay, that's like
Steve
he
Albini
get
from
away
his
with that
era.
enough. Like if you've ever read, I can't remember what magazine. I think it's Forced Exposure. He did reviews of bands he had recorded, and the amount of shit he gives to the breeders that is just like straight up like apparently he really liked the breeders, but he was just like, man, that those bitches fucking sucked, and they just got some guy to fuck the bass player, and that was cool. But like the guy who fucked the bass player was like stoned all the time, and I didn't, and it was just it's like it's
No, yeah, it's really bad. No, he said and did a lot of bad shit. But the thing I
yeah.
liked about him is he's like, I was just trying to be an edgelord troll. I thought it was all understood, yet none of us actually meant that. I now understand that you guys meant that and that I associated with you and you guys thought I meant that. And I just want to say I did not mean that. And that was not worth it. And I don't think that was cool or good. And I was like, you know what, Steve Albini, just come out. That's good. Nobody else came out and said that. I was doing a bit. It didn't age well. I wouldn't do it again. And I don't stand by it. That's
You
all
know
that
who's
say. He's the only one who said it.
kind of the opposite of that is like fucking Ian MacKay, speaking of,
Yeah.
who like, the whole like it's not that he's just like I wrote those songs when I was 16. I stand by them now. They've been misinterpreted. What are you fucking talking about? And
Yeah,
it's
he's the opposite of an Ian MacKay. Exactly.
and it's just like, dude, you can just be like the guilty of being white thing is fucking stupid. Like
It's
it's a stupid song. It's a bad
on. Yeah.
it's like not even like your best song.
Mm-mm.
Right. Also, it's not like Minor Threat's gonna get back together and you're gonna have to play guilty of being white. You can just be like, yeah, that thing I wrote when I was 16, kind of stupid. It's not an
Right. Like, yeah,
anti-racist song.
you're not gonna lose anything.
Yeah, people
No.
aren't gonna stop buying the discography CD.
I mean, I think everybody stopped buying CDs. Again, I think you are 38 in a very different way than I'm 38. And I'm really realizing that this week.
Because I went to an art opening instead of Madeline.
Just
Did
that. It's the phone, the not knowing how to put your own phone on silence.
I didn't know that's what that switch was for.
Exactly. This
I don't know how my phone
okay.
got off silent. My phone was automatically on fucking silent.
All right, all right, all right. You know what? That's the fucking episode. I'm done
Okay,
recording.
fuck this.
I'm
Okay.
done. I'm done recording. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. You can find us over on Patreon at patreon.com/pickmeupimscared, where for $3 a month you can access our bonus content, of which there is much. If $3 a month is too much for you right now, though, we totally get it, and we are just happy you're here.